Evening, and welcome to the December 14th, 2020 City Council meeting. Thank you for joining us in this remote meeting format we're using in response to Governor Brown's Stay Home, Save Lives order. This format enables the City Council to meet, hear from the community, and take care of business while keeping its members, staff, and the public safe. We have a very full agenda tonight, and there are several housekeeping announcements and instructions that I will take care of right now. Thank you for your patience while we go through this. First, anyone wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by following the access instructions listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials web page. Tonight's agenda includes a public forum and 2 public hearings later on in the evening. If you wish to participate during the public forum portion of the meeting and haven't already done so, please raise your virtual hand now to join the speaker's queue in one of 2 ways. For those viewing the meeting on a computer, laptop, or other device, click once on the blue hand icon. For those listening to the meeting on a phone, press *9. We will continue accepting raised hands until 7:35. The meeting moderator will unraise or disallow any requests to speak that are made after the deadline. You will have 2.5 minutes to speak. For those wishing to testify at one of the public hearings, please wait to raise your virtual hand until I announce that it is time to do so in my introductory remarks for each hearing. Requests to speak will be accepted until the first person begins testifying. As a reminder, we are now allowing speakers the option of turning on your video when you are called to provide testimony. As each speaker's turn is announced, the meeting moderator will temporarily promote you to panelist status, and you can unmute and turn on your video if you wish. Please be aware that there may be a slightly longer transition period between speakers as the moderator works busily behind the scenes to make all of this happen. Also, I encourage everyone to use this new increased access in a responsible way. Our intent is simply to be able to see what each faces as testimony is given. Any misuse of the platform or inappropriate sharing will result in termination of your speaking. And finally, thank you all for your patience and your good humor as we work our way through this format that has become the new normal for us. And as always, feel free to contact any one of us individually or together via email or voicemail if there is testimony you were not able to provide or wish to get to us in a different manner. And so our first order of business is a ceremonial matter. And as many of you know, this is the final public city council meeting for 2 of our esteemed colleagues. Betty Taylor has faithfully served and represented the citizens of Ward 2 in the city of Eugene for 24 years, and Chris Pryor has faithfully served and represented the citizens of Ward 8 in the city of Eugene for 16 years. Together, they're over 40 years of service. Their combined years count for over 40 years of service. They have attended more than 3,330 city council work sessions, public hearings and meetings, 740 public forums, served on over 100 committees and boards, and served as city council president or vice president for 10 years, in addition to many other things. And so we have for you a very special treat, Councilors Taylor and Pryor. And that treat is presented to you by our very own Councilor Mike Clark. Take it away, Mike.
On behalf of your last formal meeting, Sarah and I got together and inspired to compose a little song for the 2 of you. I think it's important to note that this was the mayor's idea and Sarah's idea. And so for what I'm about to do to you, for you, it's very important to remember whose idea this was. So in honor of your last meeting, and whoever's controlling the sound may want to monitor this. Ain't no sunshine when they're gone. Sad for those who would part free. Ain't no sunshine when they're gone, and these Zooms will last too long when our friends have gone away. Wonder who'll finally blow scourge or help to get cheap, fast, and right. Ain't no sunshine like before, and who'll play Captain Metaphor when our friends have gone away? When our friends have gone away. We'll miss you when you're gone away. There you go.
Thank you so much. That was great, Mike. Thank you. And I do believe that there is another moment that may delay the beginning of our meeting a little bit. So I'm wondering, Counselor Pryor and Counselor Taylor, are you hearing a doorbell ring?
I hope they're not singing telegrams.
That was
They are. I hope they're better.
Mike. It was so good.
We already had the great song.
Thank you.
Are we gonna get an interpretive dance by Sarah?
Really? Who's next?
That's
Seems only fair to me.
really well done, Mike. I'm disappointed though.
I know, that was really terrific. Oh, here we go. Chris is back.
Oh, that's a great gift basket from Mia with a picture.
So just so people who are wondering why we're sitting here quietly, that staff has prepared gift baskets and a photo, and they're being delivered to the two counselors right now. And so it's the best we can do in a virtual world. We would rather be on a stage with them and singing their praises and embarrassing them. And there we go. Here's Betty with her basket. Excellent.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was just fabulous. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. It's the least we can do after how many thousands of meetings did I say you had just attended? I don't know what you're going to do with your Monday nights.
I'll figure something out.
I hope so. Okay, welcome back, Betty. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Betty. Thank you both for your many, many years of service and for being such wonderful colleagues. And we all have enjoyed working with you. Definitely appreciate Captain Metaphor and appreciate Betty's indomitable sense of humor and forthrightness. And we will miss having you in our midst. So don't be strangers. And, you know, come to a public forum once in a while and tell us what you think we should be doing.
Or not.
Tempting.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for making that happen. And so we actually, our next item here is committee reports and items of interest. And I am fairly certain that either Jennifer or Greg has something. It looks like Betty has something. Betty, why don't we let you go first?
Thank you, and thanks for those great gifts. But I will be leaving El Rapa as well as the council, and El Rapa is in the process of choosing a new director. So I think it would be really good if my successor could be appointed soon enough to go to the December 30th meeting of LRAPA, where they'll be talking about succession. So and then the other thing I have learned mainly from the Making Cities Livable organization about cities and states all over the world that use temporarily vacant land for community gardens. I was just thinking temporarily vacant buildings could be used for shelters. And the old LCC building might be used temporarily for a shelter, since it's going to be demolished later, but it is now not being used for anything. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just say that the council appointments have been made. I think you got oh, you wouldn't have seen it, Betty. I apologize. So yes, I have appointed a replacement for you on the LRAPA. Okay.
Who is it?
I'm thinking I remember that it's Matt Keating.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Greg, do you have a motion to put forward, or Jennifer? Jennifer, you...
Actually, it's
Yeah, sorry.
to be Jennifer. My my city email has been corrupted.
Okay. Oh gosh. Okay, Jennifer, Councilor Ye, take it away.
All right, thank you. And I pre-apologize. I'm going to have to say the name, and that's probably not for me. Okay. So this is a housekeeping for the ad hoc committee on police policy. So I have a motion for that you all should have seen by now, hopefully. So I'm going to move that notwithstanding Council's September 1st motion regarding the appointment process and vacancies, because one of the NAACP's appointed representatives recently resigned, Ibrahim Koulibaly is appointed to the Ad Hoc Committee on Police Policy to serve as the second representative of the NAACP.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you very much. And thank you, Ibrahim Koulibaly, for stepping up for that role. That's important. Okay, thank you. And now we have, looks like Councilor Semple and Councilor Pryor and Councilor Evans all to speak.
Thank you. I went to the Mackenzie Watershed Council meeting last week. The hydrologists from BLM spoke. We've got some great plans for mitigating the effects of the fire. So that was pretty exciting. They also did some really impressive budget work. I have a maybe housekeeping thing for the motion we passed last Wednesday on inclusionary zoning. I would like to also know about mandatory inclusionary zoning, which wasn't specifically on the list, but it did say tools including voluntary inclusionary zoning. So I don't know if that would also cover mandatory, or if I need to make a motion to add that in.
Sorry, does anyone want to speak?
Catherine, can you help me with that?
I don't have the motion. I'd want planning to speak to that. I don't have the motion in front of me. We can certainly get you something, and I can be prepared to specifically talk to it. Oh, Amanda just popped on. Love that.
Good evening. I wasn't expecting to potentially talk at this point, but hello. Yes, the motion did say expanded options for tools, including voluntary inclusionary zoning. That's what was passed last week.
And if I'd been on top of things, I would have made it friendly to add involuntary. Since I voted yes, I believe I can bring it up at the next meeting if that's necessary, or I can just have it happen.
So if it's including, as I understand it, the tools are coming back for a later discussion. Is that correct, Amanda? So it could be discussed then. There was some very, very specific discussion about some of your colleagues being willing to vote for it if it was voluntary, but not being willing to vote for it if it was involuntary. So if you want to, since you voted for it, you could bring it to have it reconsidered. And that would need to be done now if you want to have a motion to reconsider it.
I'm sorry to take up the time. I'm not necessarily wanting that, but I want the information so I make sure I'm making the right decision in the future. So I move to reconsider.
Second.
Okay, do you want to speak? It looks like Councilor Zelenka wants to it, and then Councilor Clark.
Unless Councilor Semple wants to speak to her motion.
I basically think I did. I just want more information about the choices so we can make a decision. I just like to add, including voluntary and mandatory inclusionary zoning.
So right now you're talking about, you're going to vote on whether you want to reconsider the motion, and you'll vote on that first. And then once you're voting to reconsider it, you can make an amended motion or make a different motion or however you want. So the first thing you're going to vote on is whether you want to have the discussion again.
Okay. So Councilors like.
Yeah. Well, when we were having the conversation, I made the comment that it was my understanding that we shouldn't wait very long to talk about mandatory, because when we get the report back and it's not where we want to go, we don't want to start then. We want to start earlier than that. So I was willing to see that start of at least the mandatory part be in the hopper so that we could see it later. But I'm more than willing to support the motion.
Councilor Clark, did you have your, oh wait, I have Councilor Pryor. Wait, different queue. Councilor Clark?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that I won't support the motion, not because I don't want the information, but I've already had a lot of information on mandatory and inclusionary zoning. And I'll just repeat what I said the other day as somebody in this industry. There's no faster way I can think of to make sure no new housing gets built, and that if it does, it'll be incredibly unaffordable, more so than where we are right now, than creating inclusionary zoning in our city. Mandatory. When it comes to voluntary and we're incentivizing it, that has the exact opposite effect, and I'm absolutely fine with that. But I fear that we will make a bad situation dramatically worse if we put this into place. So I won't support that.
Okay, any other comments on the motion to reconsider? All in favor of the motion to reconsider, please raise your hands. 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. I'm missing somebody.
Claire.
Oh, I'm missing Claire. Oh, Claire stepped away. Okay, so that was opposed, so passes 4-3.
Okay, so now you're reconsidering the motion that was previously made. So you have it, there's a couple ways you can treat it. At this point, you can treat it as moved and seconded. And then if Councilor Semple, you want to make a friendly or make a motion to amend, we can proceed that way. I think that will get your work done.
Yeah, I think I make a motion to amend Wednesday's motion, adding mandatory inclusionary zoning to also. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
And speaking to it, I'm not making a case that I want it. I understand that it could be very detrimental. And I don't need a huge report about it. I just don't want to totally leave it out of the information that we receive, if only to further support Councilor Clark's position. So I don't want to have a little vacuum over there, just like a little fuller picture. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so
you'll vote on the amendment, which would be to add getting information regarding mandatory inclusionary zoning, and then you'll vote on the motion to amend if it passes.
Okay.
And it
All
looks
right.
like Counselor Clark had a question.
Okay, Counselor Clark. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I certainly understand Counselor Semple's point that, like Captain Metaphor himself has always said, it's always good to have more information. So that's fine. I understand that. I would ask for some very specific information that we didn't have the other day in the meeting. And that's with the Portland example, and certainly we're not Portland because this close in other communities around us is where all the new housing will go, and it won't go in Eugene. But when Portland did this and they went from 6,000 permits down to 600 the next year, I would really like to have staff call the several dozen developers who put those applications for permits in and find out specifically from them why did they do it all at once in advance? What were they trying to avoid? And I'd really like to have that information if we're going to talk about mandatory inclusionary zoning. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to amend. All in favor? Please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? Oh, and that was 6. Chris, you put your up. Opposed? Just 2. All right, so that passes. And so now let's vote on the motion as amended. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 2. So that passes as well. Okay, thank you very much for
Thank you.
that.
I appreciate
Yep.
it.
Yep, thank you. All right, so now I'm back to, Counselor Semple, did you have something? Are you finished with items? All right,
I think I'll do it after the forum will probably be appropriate time.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, then I have Counselor Pryor and Counselor Evans.
Thank you. This kind of falls under the heading of a public service announcement, I guess. Today, we passed a milestone of 300,000 deaths from COVID. That's 9/11 times 100. And so I think what we need to do is publicly, whenever we can, advocate that when the vaccine becomes available, that people get vaccinated. The best way that we can reduce the infection rate, reduce deaths, to make our community get back to normal as fast as possible is for people to take the vaccine, take it twice, make sure that we don't start infecting others. So that's my public service announcement for the evening is too many people have died. If the vaccine comes out, take it.
Thank you. Counselor Evans.
Yeah, a quick update on the League of Oregon Cities. We had our board meeting last Friday, and at that meeting, we had the opportunity to honor Counselor Taylor and her 24 years of service on the council. We surprised her. We snuck up on her. So I think Counselor Taylor was pretty taken aback. So, and it was a really good thing. The other thing too that I want to definitely mention is that the League of Oregon Cities has undergone a process to develop an equity and inclusion committee. I've served as co-chair of that committee with Amanda Fritz for the past year. We have memorialized that committee in the bylaws of LOC. And we have also begun, we have started and have approved a caucus of elected officials of color. There is a women's caucus that is developing and an LGBTQ caucus that's developing as well. I think this is a major move forward with the league. And we're trying our best to get more women and more people of color, on serving on the board of the league. And we have quite a few all across the state. So that's important too. And one other thing of note is Albany elected its first Black mayor, Councilor Alex Johnson. He beat a 12-year incumbent, and he will be the next mayor of Albany starting in January.
Thank you, Councilor Evans. And I have, I thought I had Councilor Clark in the queue, but I guess not. So I have Councilor Zelenka.
Yeah, first I would like to thank Councilor Pryor and Councilor Terra for their long years of service, all 7 billion meetings that they went to and over the last decades. And so thank you very much for your service, and don't feel obligated to come to any just out of compulsion. But we'd be glad to hear what you have to say and see your face and actually meet you in person once again. As far as items, Jennifer and I are on the police commission, and we had reports from internal affairs, their report and a report plus the police auditor's report, which was given to us a couple of weeks ago. So now the police commission has the same information that we had on both of those reports.
Okay. Oh, I do have Councilor Clark back in the.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. I did too, just because I didn't, do it before when I was nervous with guitar in my hands. I want to say that to Chris and to Betty, thank you very much for your long service to our community. I have appreciated working with you over the years. And Betty, I don't know who's going to fight with me next for, who gets to talk first. And I'm going to miss you when it comes time to do that. I'm going to think of you every time. And I think it's special recognition that's deserved to note that Betty has served on this council longer than anyone in history. She's served our community longer than anyone else ever has. And I honor you and I respect you for that, Betty. Long years of slogging through meetings with folks like us. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. And I believe that's it. Thank you again for all those comments. And I think we're ready to move on to the consent calendar. Can I have a motion?
I think Alan wanted to.
Alan, did you want to?
I'd like to pull item E.
Okay.
So I move to approve the items on the consent calendar, except for item E.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. Thank you. And now you want to speak to item E?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I don't have a problem with item E. Actually, just exactly the opposite. I wanted to actually bring attention to item E, which is a approval of a new low-income rental housing property tax exemption for a new project called Iris Place. Not only because I like to say LERPD, but because it's actually a very cool project. And I was wondering if someone from staff would be available to describe the project for us so people can see that this is yet another project that the city is doing that actually will increase affordable housing for very low income folks. So maybe someone can describe it and describe my units and maybe the income level, something like that.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Ellen Mae Galloway with Community Development. And thank you so much, Councilor Zelenka, for highlighting the Iris Place development that's under construction by St. Vincent de Paul. City Council has been involved in this development for some time. The property on River Road was acquired by the city through the Land Bank program in early 2016 at Council's direction using Community Development Block Grant funds. The property was offered through a request for proposals process along with home development assistance funds. City Council selected St. Vincent de Paul's Iris Place proposal in January 2019. Since that time, St. Vincent de Paul secured state financing and proceeded towards groundbreaking. The COVID pandemic created a delay in the spring of 2020, but the project began construction over the summer. The development provides 52 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, affordable to households earning no more than 50% of the area median income, or AMI, and an on-site manager unit. 5 units will be targeted to households earning no more than 30% AMI, and 5 units will be targeted to survivors of domestic violence. It has a community building that will be built to essential facilities standards for emergency preparedness and outdoor common areas. The development is expected to complete construction by the end of 2021. The low-income rental housing property tax exemption, or LRPD, you are considering this evening, reduces rents at the property to maximize affordability to very low-income households. The proposed rents would not be possible without the LRPD. So thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, thank you for
Alan, you're still on mute if you're speaking.
unmute. Thank you for that, Ellen. It's exactly what I wanted to hear. I hadn't heard of projects that actually reserved units for domestic violence survivors. Is that something new?
Actually, the proposals that we received for this land bank site on River Road, all 3 of them proposed set aside units for survivors of domestic violence. So I guess that Women's Space is doing some outreach to try to get more units targeted for that population.
Yeah, that's great. So this is the first one of the ones that we've done through LRPD, though, that have that requirement.
I believe so.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and this is actually type of project that we should be highlighting. Like I said before, at another meeting, I think a lot of the stuff that we've been doing isn't really going to actually result in affordable housing units. This is a subsidy. It's the kind of property tax exemption that we actually should be doing, and it will actually result in 52 units of affordable housing, which is exactly where we need to be going in terms of creating more of a mix of affordable housing for folks in Eugene. So thank you for the project, and yay for us and yay for St. Vincent de Paul.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion to approve item E.
Well, yeah, so we'll need to, since it wasn't included in the original, Counselor Semple, if you can specifically move to approve item E.
I move to approve item E on the consent calendar.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that passes. Thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to the public forum. I'm sure those folks are eager to have their moment. The public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the City Council on any city-related issues, except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official or are on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. When it is your turn, the moderator will announce your name and promote you to panelist status. Please state your name clearly, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known, before beginning your comments. Again, each person will have 2.5 minutes to speak. If you are watching the meeting, the timer should be visible. A yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light and beep indicate the end of your 2.5 minutes. When your time has concluded, the moderator will demote you back to attendee status and move on to the next speaker. For those who have connected to the meeting via phone and don't have the benefit of seeing the timer, please be aware that your microphone will be muted at the 2.5 minute mark. And it looks like we have 28 people raising their hands. So I will turn it over to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So first we have Jacoby, followed by Nicholas.
Hi, I am Jacoby Hulk Luke, and I am here in solidarity with the Sunrise Movement. which is a hub for the National Climate Organization, fighting for climate justice and a Green New Deal on the local, state, and federal level. I'm aware that fracked gas has been a significant contributor to the city of Eugene's greenhouse gas emissions, and that its extraction and transportation disproportionately impacts historically marginalized, low-income, and BIPOC communities. I know that the city council, mayor, city manager, and city staff have considered numerous options in negotiating a new franchise agreement with Northwest Natural, including no new natural gas infrastructure in our city. After 2 6-month extensions, and now with a third extension approved, which ends in May of 2021, no agreement has been reached. It is the city's legal and moral responsibility to do everything in its power to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions in line with the recommendation of the best available science and invest in building climate resilient communities freed with reliance on fossil fuels, as I am requesting that the City Council pass a series of ordinances to mandate the transition of all utilities in city to 100% renewable energy by 2030, ban the construction of all new fossil fuel infrastructure in the city, and levy a fee on Northwest Natural and other climate polluters to create a fund to transition low-income and historically marginalized communities from fracked gas to electrical appliances, and to retrofit these homes to increase efficiency.
Thank you. It looks like Nicholas Tippins was next and may have dropped off. So we're gonna go with 350 Eugene. Will be followed again by 350 Eugene. So do you guys have 2 people in the household who are going to be talking? And you'll need to unmute yourself.
Good evening, councilors, mayor. This is Patty Hine. I am a volunteer with 350 Eugene. I live in the county. It's clear that 20 years ago, when the franchise agreement first was negotiated, we didn't know we were headed for climate breakdown. Even 5 years ago, we didn't know that natural gas or methane was a greenhouse gas with way more atmospheric heating capacity than carbon dioxide. But now we do know about climate breakdown. We do know that gas is a dirty, polluting energy source. I know you've been working on a plan since Mayor Piercy signed the Kyoto-related US Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement in 2005, but let's take a look. The 2014 CRO's first goal was for city-owned facilities and operations to be carbon neutral by this year, and we're not even close, and the clock keeps ticking. Without talking about the coming ecological crises, let me get back to the facts that you know so well. We have 7 years before climate tipping points will be irreversible. 7 years. Now, you have it within your power to take concrete steps to limit expansion of unhealthy and polluting fossil gas in our community. Is it a big change? Yes, it is a big change. On the order of big changes that we are going to need to take, or we'll have to explain why we didn't to the young people you'll be hearing from tonight. The science says we cannot build more fossil fuel infrastructure, full stop. It also says communities cannot meet their climate goals if they don't phase out natural gas, full stop. 40 cities in California are doing it, and so are Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Maine. We could be among those. Councilors Evan and Taylor, thank you for continuing to advocate for strong climate action and thinking about how to work outside the box to phase out frack gas. Today is the 5-year anniversary of the Paris Climate Accords, and you said then that the city of Eugene was in for the goals outlined there to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. The Paris principles say no expansion of fossil fuels. Will you keep your promise? Best wishes and thank you, Councilors Pryor and Taylor. Thank you for your service. Have a good holiday break, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have 350 Eugene listed again. Is this another member from the same household? Or were you on here twice? And please unmute yourself.
Hi, sorry about that. My name is Selena Blick, and I have lived in Eugene for most of my life. I also attended the University of Oregon and helped start the campaign in 2016 that resulted in U of O updating their climate action plan. A large part of our campaign was urging the U of O to stop using natural gas to heat their building. And this makes up nearly 40% of their emissions. And we had a lot of support for this ask, much more support than even I was expecting. In spring 2018, we sponsored a referendum on the ASUO ballot asking the U of O to commit to further measures to address its carbon emissions, including switching off of natural gas. This referendum passed with over 95% of student support. In the following year, the U of O administration took this a step further and sent out a survey to students, staff, and faculty asking how much they would be willing to pay to see U of O lower its carbon emissions. The results showed that the majority of students would be willing to pay over $100 a year for U of O to lower its emissions, which is more than enough to cover the cost of switching to electric heating. Students that are already getting gouged by the university are willing to voluntarily pay more because they know that acting on climate change is that important. Now, students shouldn't have to pay more for the leaders in our community to do what's right, and neither should anyone else in Eugene. But this just shows how much the people in our community care about this issue and want to do the right thing. And from a city who claims to be a leader in climate change, you should not be waiting for your citizens to beg you to take action. You should be leading the charge against fossil fuel corporations who are taking advantage of our community and our planet. It is time for Eugene to stand up to Northwest Natural and demand a ban on new gas infrastructure. It is time for Eugene to mandate the transition of all utilities in the city to 100% renewable energy by 2030, and to levy a fee on Northwest Natural to create a justice fund that helps transition low-income communities off of fracked gas. It is time for a just transition off of fossil fuels, and as a national municipal leader in climate change, it is beyond time for Eugene to take that step. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Devin, followed by Sophia. And Devin, please unmute.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to present public comment today. My name is Devin Kessner, and I'm a Eugene resident of Ward 1 and a climate and energy attorney for Breach Collective, an Oregon-based 501c3 nonprofit. The city of Eugene prides itself as a climate leader and has repeatedly recognized the acute threat of climate change to its citizens in passing the Climate Recovery Ordinance and the Climate Action Plan this summer. Yet the Climate Action Plan itself points out that the city is not on track to meet its targets and that existing plans will only achieve 40% of Eugene's emissions goals, necessitating immediate and significant additional strategies from the city to live up to its asserted climate leadership. I stand with other members of the community in calling for the city to, 1, ban all new fossil fuel infrastructure, including new gas hookups, 2, mandate a transition to 100% renewable energy, and 3, utilize the ongoing franchise agreement negotiations with Northwest Natural to develop a fund for transitioning the community to renewables. With regards to the franchise agreement, the city has already identified these negotiations as a tangible option for achieving emissions reductions and should not agree to a new agreement that does not take advantage of that tool. With natural gas a major source of Eugene's greenhouse gas emissions, restricting natural gas use is crucial for the city to close the gap between its existing plans and its emissions targets. Beyond bringing the city significantly closer to its emissions goals, restricting natural gas use will also protect the health and safety of Eugene community members. Natural gas disproportionately threatens lower income communities and communities of color with indoor air pollution, risks of explosions and leaks, and other negative health outcomes. In negotiations, the city must ensure that Northwest Natural is held accountable for its role in Eugene's carbon footprint, and that the burden of any increased franchise fee does not simply get pushed to consumers who already bear the burden of these risks. The city should incorporate the public into the franchise agreement negotiation process to ensure that the ultimate agreement is in the best interests of the community. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Devin. Next, we have Sophia, followed by phone ending in 878.
Hi guys, thank you so much for the chance to testify. My name is Sophia Trotter, and I'm a member of Sunrise Eugene, which is a hub for the National Climate Organization fighting for climate justice and a Green New Deal on the local level and state and federal level as well. And I'm here with everyone else who is testifying in regards to the ongoing use and expansion of natural gas and other fossil fuel infrastructure in the city of Eugene. And I'll just give you my own personal account, not repeating facts that you've already heard, but basically I grew up in Eugene and I've always had pride in how our people care deeply for the environment. And I'm proud that our city agreed to the CRO, even though the current climate action plan already leaves a 40% gap, but I still have hope. And of course, I'm a young person, so I hold a particular stake in our future. And I really can't put into words how worried I am at the point we are now. And if progressive places like Eugene, the city of tree huggers, don't take concrete action to address climate change, then I don't know who will. And I think we could really be a leader and make our young people proud in the future. Anyway, with that said, I'm here to demand that we mandate the transition of all utilities in the city to 100% renewable energy by the year 2030, that we ban the construction of all new fossil fuel infrastructure in the city, and really the expansion in the area of downtown riverfront site. I also demand that we levy a fee on Northwest Natural and climate leaders to create a fund to transition low-income and historically marginalized communities from frack gas to electric appliances. And additionally, I ask that our elected leaders refuse to continue a franchise agreement with Northwest Natural unless they agree to the terms that put us on track to meet our CRO goals. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sophia. Next is 878, followed by Jenna. And if you would please unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. My name is Misty Frost. I live on Corliss Lane. I'm currently employed as a community engagement coordinator for 211 Info, and I'm on the board of directors for both El Rapa and River Road Community Organization, and chair of River Road Emergency Preparedness and Evacuation Committee. I'm also with Eugene Wildfire Preparedness Coalition. My comments tonight do not reflect the positions of these organizations. I'm here as a mother and a concerned resident of Eugene. I do want to share with you what I witnessed during the fires in September. 211 Info was called on to be the non-emergency call center for our state. As the smoke blasted over our city, I got the call from my boss that they needed all hands on deck. I took calls from Oregonians from all over the state, needing information ranging from shelter locations to how to sign up for notifications, to driving directions out of a level 3 evacuation zone, and how to escape from a level 3 evacuation zone when one was disabled and no taxi would go into a level 3. Believe me, I tried. I heard Oregonians crying over the phone as they watched their homes burn down. Groups that suffered the most were our homeless community, those disabled or with limited mobility, seniors, our Spanish-speaking community, and low-income families. Over the course of 8 days, it became clear to me that our state isn't prepared. Our communities are not prepared. it became clear to me that neighbors rely on each other during disasters. I have heard at least one of you say that local government is looking at neighborhood organizations to help get our neighbors prepared. It is for this reason I established the Emergency Preparedness Committee for River Road. This committee has been working hard for the last 2 months, and many people have responded and are involved. I also joined the Neighborhood Leadership Council's committee, where we are looking at how to reduce fuel around our city that puts all of us at risk of fire. I understand you have
Thank you, Misty. That concludes your time. Next, we have Jenna, followed by Nicholas.
Hello. Hi, my name is Jenna Witzlaven, and I live in Ward 3. Thank you, City Council members, for the opportunity to testify. I am a landscape architecture student at the University of Oregon and part of Sunrise Eugene. Before starting my studies here, I held a salaried position in an engineering and architecture firm for 3 years. And one of the main lessons I learned while working there was about the time scale of design and planning in the built environment. Unlike a mobile app, UX design, or even interior design, which can be edited and updated within a matter of a few weeks at fairly low cost, decisions about the buildings and infrastructure in our cities frequently stay with us for 50 years or more. We are facing compounding effects of climate chaos, ecological degradation, public health threats, and racial, gender, and class injustice. And the threats of fossil fuel-driven climate change will disproportionately affect people who have been most harmed by this pandemic: low-income and BIPOC communities, including those whose unceded land we are on. If we want to have any chance of curbing the worst impacts of climate change, we have to act now. This is not the time to be building fossil fuel infrastructure for the next 50 years. So I am requesting that the City Council pass a series of ordinances to mandate the transition of all utilities in the city to 100% renewable energy by 2030, ban the construction of all new fossil fuel infrastructure in the city, and levy a fee on Northwest Natural and other climate polluters to create a fund to transition low-income and historically marginalized communities from fracked gas to electric appliances and to retrofit these homes to increase efficiency. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenna. Next, we have Nicholas, followed by Maddie.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, there's a little bit of background.
Oh, great. I just muted that, so that should be
Okay,
all right.
you're great. You're good now.
Cool. My name is Nicholas Tippins. I'm a member of Sunrise Eugene, and I served as a representative on the Mayor's Ad Hoc Committee for the CAP 2.0. I'm also a member of the generation that will inherit the most disastrous effects of climate change. While to those who did not grow up in my era, climate change may seem theoretical, to me, and especially to the Black, Indigenous, people of color who are most vulnerable to its effects, climate change is as real as life and death. The climate-driven wildfires of last summer are but one example of this growing catastrophe. The city of Eugene has made a powerful promise in the form of the CAP 2.0 to reduce its carbon emissions and thereby give some small measure of hope that my children's generation may survive on a habitable planet. However, thus far, this promise has been followed by very little action. The plan itself still has a 40% gap to meeting the CRO goals. While I'm sure this promise was made with the best intentions, I'm increasingly worried that it will go unfulfilled without urgent and meaningful action. With the negotiation of the Northwest Natural Franchise Agreement, you as the City Council have an opportunity to start fulfilling the promise made in the CAP 2.0. Thus, I ask that the city mandate the transition of all utilities in the city to 100% renewable energy by 2030, ban the construction of all new natural fuel infrastructure, all new fossil fuel infrastructure in the city, and levy a fee on Northwest Natural and other climate polluters to create a fund to transition low-income and historically marginalized communities from fracked gas to electric appliances, and to retrofit these homes to increase efficiency. Northwest Natural must pay this fee, not the customers. A few other points. Sweeping houseless camps during a pandemic, forcing people out of self-isolation and giving them false information about alternative shelters. This is unconscionable, and I struggle to comprehend how this is serving anyone in our community. 2, a Black man was shot by EPD several weeks ago. A white man in a similar situation months before was stopped with beanbags rather than bullets. Actions speak louder than words, and even after the events of last summer, EPD's actions clearly say that Black lives don't matter to them. But they matter to us as a community. It's time to reallocate EPD's funding to a just and equitable system of community safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Next, we have Maddie by Sylvia.
Hello, my name is Madeline Blum. I was born and raised in Eugene, and I'm a resident of Ward 3. I love my home, and I believe that we must take extensive measures to protect this great state and do our part in protecting the world. I'm here to support Sunrise Movement Eugene's demands. Mandate the transition of all utilities in the city to 100% renewable energy by 2030. Ban the construction of all new fossil fuel infrastructure in the city, and levy a fee on Northwest Natural and other climate polluters to create a fund to transition low-income and historically marginalized communities from fracked gas to electric appliances, and to retrofit these homes to increase efficiency. Additionally, I ask that our elected leaders refuse to continue a franchise agreement with Northwest Natural unless they agree to terms that put us on track to meet our climate recovery ordinance goals. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Maddie. Next is Sylvia, followed by Matthew.
Hi, can y'all hear me? Sweet.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
As someone that has lived in Eugene my entire life, I've witnessed city officials, police, and others that are supposed to quote unquote serve and protect falter in both those claims, but never so blatantly as I have in the past few weeks. On November 18th of this year, against CDC, Lane County Health, and OHA guidelines due to the pandemic, the Parks Department chose to sweep an unhoused camp. The city of Eugene did not have to sweep this camp. However, under the guise of community safety, they chose to do it anyways. A couple weeks later, they deployed cops and private excavating company to help them sweep the ODOT property nearby. Here they passed out flyers swimming with misinformation about where people could escape to. They forcibly removed our unhoused neighbors from where they were sheltering in place, what we're all supposed to be doing, right? And for some, stripped them of their few possessions and then lied to them. My solution is stop the sweeps. On November 30th, EPD shot Muhsin Sharif, a Black man. Since then, they have spent more time spreading misinformation about Sharif than sharing clear facts to the community. A white man in a similar situation the month before was stopped with beanbags rather than bullets. The city of Eugene needs to stop paying lip service to Black Lives Matter and actually start acting like it. Release all of the information, stop pretending it's okay to propagate a narrative that shifts the blame, and the best solution, defund the police. The city's franchising agreement with Northwest Natural is yet another prime example of how the leaders here say one thing and then do another. They boast that this is a green city and then turn around and attempt to make a deal with a company that is building new fracked gas infrastructure. We cannot reach our climate goals and do this at the same time. The solutions? We want 100% renewables from utilities by 2030. We want a ban on all new fossil fuel infrastructure. And we demand levying a tax or increasing the franchise fee with Northwest Natural, the profits of which would help offset the costs for low-income and marginalized members of the community transitioning from fossil fuels. All of these events tell me that the city of Eugene cares more about their liberal facade than actually backing it up with anything helpful or safe for everyone here. People are being left in the dark. There must be a larger initiative in the city to talk about what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Next is Matthew, followed by Tai.
My name is Matthew Simmons. I'm calling from Ward 7. Many people seem to be interested in converting to renewable resources in an effort to avert a climate disaster. I'd just like to highlight another compelling reason to consider a rapid transition. Oil and thereby gasoline is a commodity in which we all depend for all commerce. And it's also a commodity prone to price spikes and possible prolonged shortages. Peak oil production and the decline afterwards represents a problem on a global scale, but also on an immediate local scale. My question is, what percentage of municipal vehicles, emergency supply vehicles currently operate with an empty gas tank? Do we have any number of electric emergency vehicles, or should we citizens assume that the city is woefully ill-prepared to mitigate potential gasoline shortages? Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Next is Tai, followed by Eloise.
Hello, my name is Tai Williams. I was born and raised here in the city of Eugene, and I work as a wildland firefighter and COVID-19 contact tracer, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I want to recognize that the challenge of this moment is incredibly intense, and we face many crises. We all witnessed the horrors of the climate-driven wildfires this year, which also disproportionately impacted unhoused folks in this community. I was present for the sweep of the encampment at First and Jefferson, which was an unmitigated disaster and a complete abdication of any consideration of human rights. When I spoke with the city employees who were present there, they were aware that at least one person at the encampment was COVID positive and that dozens of folks should have been quarantining. However, they continued to pass out misinformation about how people could access it, none of which was actually available. And there was absolutely no recourse for these folks, and they were sent with no resources, their stuff taken in the cold, to find other encampments around town, and were given no shelter whatsoever, potentially infecting hundreds of other people, as we were experiencing at that moment our highest rates of hospitalization for COVID since the pandemic began. These sweeps are not only a public health threat, but they also show a disregard for poor and unhoused community members. And then I also want to address that this city has been great at creating bold goals regarding housing and our climate, and has also been incredibly awful at following through on any of them. And I want to address particularly the Northwest Gas franchise agreement. My house has been connected to Northwest Gas with a gas stove and gas heater when I was growing up. I also developed asthma as a kid. Now, I don't know for certain that my gas stove and heater caused this, but I do know that I had a more than 40% higher chance of developing asthma because I was in this house with a gas stove. And so I want to stand with other community members who are asking for a moratorium on new gas infrastructure, and for creating a fund to support low-income and historically marginalized communities to transition from fracked gas to electric. And then I just want to ask the question, given that it is literally impossible to meet the CRO goals if new gas infrastructure continues to be built, how can we justify ourselves as climate leaders if we do not enact a moratorium now? Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Eloise, followed by Avery.
Hi, my name is Eloise Parrish-Mueller, and I'm a Eugene resident and voter, and a member of Sunrise Eugene and the Fossil Free Eugene Coalition. I'm here to call on the council in the city of Eugene to establish a mandated community-wide transition to 100% renewable energy by 2030, a ban on all new fossil fuel infrastructure, including so-called natural gas infrastructure and hookups, and levying a tax or increased franchise fee on Northwest Natural Gas to establish a justice fund to help low-income and marginalized communities to transition to affordable renewable energy. These fees must be borne by Northwest Natural Gas, not consumers. Natural gas is not a benign or green fuel in any way, despite what companies might have us believe. 2/3 of the natural gas in the US is fracked, a highly destructive extraction process that wastes and contaminates water, pollutes the air, especially for frontline communities, worsens earthquakes, and leaks the incredibly potent greenhouse gas methane into the atmosphere. On top of being detrimental for human and environmental health on the production end, the usage of natural gas in providing building heating and energy further contributes to climate change and worsens indoor air quality, disproportionately harming low-income and BIPOC communities and individuals. We need to transition off of it immediately. We cannot afford to keep waiting for the state or federal government to come along and solve all the challenges we face regarding climate change and energy transition and justice. As much as anyone's, I sincerely hope that mass action will soon happen at these levels, but I also know that the transition that is called for in this urgent crisis must and can come from the bottom up. As a city, we have a major opportunity right now with the expiration of the franchise agreement with Northwest Natural Gas to stop the expansion of fossil fuels in our community and implement a transition to renewable energy that creates good green jobs and makes our community safer and more livable for everyone. We need to take advantage of this. And on a separate note, I just want to speak to the life-threatening shooting of, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Muhsin Sharif by the Eugene police on November 30th. There's no justification for this kind of murderous action that's state sanctioned, and we need to transition away from violent law enforcement methods to actual community safety systems that help meet people's basic needs and de-escalate conflicts and help people in communities heal. Thank you.
Thank you, Eloise. Next, we have Avery, followed by FUSI Info.
Hi, y'all. My name is Avery Temple, and I'm in Ward 3. Can y'all hear me? Okay. Tonight, I'm here to bring up two topics that are not as unrelated as they may sound. One, the demand to ban fracked gas and transition to 100% renewables, and two, to immediately, in all forms, defund the Eugene Police Department. As a person paying rent on occupied Kalapuya land, as a woman of color, and as a member of the queer community, I demand that the city of Eugene bans all new fossil fuel infrastructure, levies a fee with Northwest Natural to create a justice fund to pay for low income and marginalized demographics to transition away from fossil fuels, and that we make the transition towards 100% renewable energy by 2020. I demand also that the Eugene Police Department is defunded in its entirety, and that the funds previously used are immediately allocated towards healthcare, de-escalation, housing, education, and other community necessities that center the safety and well-being of all people on this portion of Kalapuya land. On November 30th, EPD attempted to murder a Black man whose name is Muhsin Sharif. He survived. However, he is being held in critical condition in jail with a bond of $25,000 and 4 felony charges. Further, EPD has been performing sweeps during the pandemic, forcing those who are unhoused to become even more vulnerable to the elements and COVID. The Eugene Police Department has not and will never be able to keep us safe as long as they are able to commit acts of violence on our community members. Eugene City Council, I urge you to take bold and unapologetic action in regards to these two topics. By banning fracked gas, transitioning to clean energy, creating a justice fund, and defunding the police, we will be able to create a city that belongs to all of us. I know that stepping in a new direction can be intimidating, and moving towards something we have yet to know is scary, but we must be brave. The lives of everyone you know and love, including your own, requires this of us. We must cherish the land, not destroy it. We must protect Black life, not ruin it. We must house our people, not punish them for the moral and material poverty we have all created. We must fund life-affirming institutions instead of those that bring death. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have FUSI Info, followed by Cascadia Wildlands.
Hello, can you hear me? All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. My Zoom name says FUSI Info, but my name is Madeline Cowan, and I work for FUSI, which is Firefighters United for Safety, Ethics, and Ecology. I also live in Ward 2 in Eugene on occupied Kalapuya land. FUSI is a nonprofit local organization who works closely with wildland firefighters and communities impacted by wildfire. This wildfire season, across the West, wildfire ignitions spread at tremendous speeds and grew to enormous sizes that overwhelmed the ability of firefighters to stop or put them out. As we witnessed this year in our close communities up the Mackenzie River, the world's largest, most technically trained and equipped firefighting forces with near limitless funding could not halt the climate-driven wildfires and urban configurations that destroyed our community neighbors not so far from Eugene. These wildfires are killing dozens of people annually, destroying homes by the thousands, and increasingly incinerating entire neighborhoods. Climate chaos has sparked a wildfire crisis across the West. We know that fracked gas is exacerbating the climate crisis and is endangering the people and communities and wildland firefighters of Eugene and beyond. I'm here today to advocate for the city of Eugene to take bold action to mitigate the worst impacts of the climate crisis. I expect that with bold city leadership, we will meet the goals of the Climate Recovery Ordinance that was enacted a couple of years ago. For the future safety of communities and wildland firefighters alike, I urge the city to meet the following demands that many other people have brought up earlier tonight. 1, shift to renewable energies, 100% renewables by 2030 for all utilities. 2, ban all new fossil fuel infrastructure. Finally, levy a tax to increase the franchise fee with Northwest Natural to create a just fund to pay for low-income and marginalized demographics to transition from fossil fuels into efficiency. As more fossil fuels are burned in this city, it adds to the climate crisis, and this increases wildfire risks and hazards. Wildland firefighters and low-income community residents will bear the brunt of.
Thank you, Madeline. Your time has ended. Next is Cascadia Wildlands, followed by Betsy.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for providing an opportunity for public testimony. My name is Dylan Plummer, and I'm the grassroots organizer for Cascadia Wildlands, an environmental nonprofit dedicated to protecting Eugene's forests and endangered species and fighting for climate justice. I want to acknowledge briefly that I am on Calapia land. It should go without saying the climate crisis is real, it is devastating our communities, and we must act now to mitigate the worst impacts before it is too late. The time for ambitious goals is long gone. Now is the time for clear vision and bold action. Keyword bold, you've heard it all night. Counselors, you're faced with a unique opportunity to reimagine Eugene's energy future. In your efforts to renegotiate the city's franchise agreement with Northwest Natural, you have the opportunity to forge a path towards a just transition in the city. You can use this opportunity to start a process to completely decarbonize our town and equitably move our community into the new decade. Or you can double down on the same old status quo that has brought us to this point with wildfires. We are at a crossroads and our small town is looking to you for leadership. And so I ask, please refuse to sign a new franchise agreement with Northwest Natural unless they agree to terms that put us on track to meet our CRO goals and put us in line with the desire of the constituents that you serve. It is the city's legal and moral responsibility to do everything in its power to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in line with the recommendations available by us. Invest in building climate resilient communities and equitable communities free from our reliance on fuels. As such, in addition to renegotiating our franchise agreement with North Natural, I request that the City Council pass a series of ordinances to 1, mandate the transition of all utilities in the city to 100% renewable energy by 2030. 2, ban the construction of all new fossil fuel infrastructure. And 3, levy a fee on Northwest Natural and other climate polluters to create a fund to transition low-income, historically marginalized communities from fracked gas to electric appliances and retrofit those homes to increase efficiency. I'm speaking really quickly because I want to get to my last point, which is coming from myself as an individual, not as representative of Cascadia Wildlands, and as a resident of Ward 2. I encourage the City Council to defund the Eugene Police Force in light of last year's murder of Eliborio Rodriguez and the recent attempted murder of Muhsin Sharif.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next is Betsy, followed by Jesse.
Hello, good evening. I'm Betsy Hitz from Ward 1. Eugene prides itself on being a national municipal leader in climate change policy, planning, and action. But if you look at the history of city government in regards to climate, the action piece is where Eugene falls short. Our city government has been mostly stuck in climate planning mode for 12 years. In 2008, 3 years after former Mayor Piercy started the process by signing the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement, planning started on what would be 3 iterations of a climate action plan. We currently have the Climate Action Plan 2.0 formulated to achieve our climate recovery ordinance goals. At the December 9 City Council CAP 2.0 work session, staff reported that the timeline now extends out to July 2023 to allow more time for planning and analysis. The CAP 2.0 already has a gap problem in that it fails to meet the CRO emissions goal of cutting fossil fuel consumption in half within 10 years. That gap is 40%. At the top of the list of strategies to close this gap is reduce natural gas emissions via changes in the Northwest Natural Franchise Agreement. Here are two reasons to focus on natural gas. From the 2017 Community Greenhouse Gas Inventory, emissions from natural gas were 11 times higher than emissions from electricity. And while total city emissions have been lowering over the past decade, natural gas emissions have been increasing. The remedy? A ban on new natural gas infrastructure and hookups, and a phased fuel switch from natural gas to electricity rolled out equitably over time. As gas heaters and appliances reach their end of life, replace them with electric. The heavy lifts of climate action in Eugene are being slow rolled, and we're running out of time. Meanwhile, Eugene continues to authorize new gas infrastructure and hookups, which commit us to another 50 years of methane emissions. This inaction runs counter to the CRO goals and condemns our community to continued poisoning from toxic fracked gas. Thank you for your attention and for taking action on behalf of all of us. Good evening.
Thank you. Next is Jesse, followed by James.
Mayor Venice, City Councilors, and City Manager Maderi, thank you for providing me an opportunity to give testimony. My name is Jesse, and I'm a member of Sunrise Eugene, a hub for the national climate organization fighting for climate justice and a Green New Deal on the local, state, and federal level. I'm here today as someone who has grown up in this place, unceded Wanafeli Kalapuya land, to testify in regards to the ongoing use and expansion of natural gas and other fossil fuel infrastructure in the so-called city of Eugene. As the climate crisis worsens and we barrel toward total ecological breakdown and increased suffering locally and globally, I believe it is of utmost importance for the city to be taking extensive measures to eliminate its carbon emissions and provide for a transition to still harmful renewable energies, and hopefully a just transition beyond extractive energy production altogether. We certainly can't get there without moving away from fossil fuels right now. As such, I expect that with bold city leadership, the city of Eugene will meet the goals of the Climate Recovery Ordinance adopted in 2014 by the year 2030. I'm aware that fracked gas has been a significant contributor to the city of Eugene's greenhouse gas emissions, and that its extraction and transportation disproportionately impacts historically marginalized low-income and BIPOC communities. It is the city's legal and moral responsibility to do everything in its power to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions in line with the recommendations of the best available science and invest in building climate resilient communities freed from reliance on fossil fuels. As such, I am requesting that the City Council pass a series of ordinances to mandate the transition of all utilities in the city to 100% renewable energy by 2030, ban the construction of all new fossil fuel infrastructure in the city, levy a fee on Northwest Natural and all other climate polluters to create a fund to transition low-income and historically marginalized communities from fracked gas to electric appliances and to retrofit these homes to increase efficiency. Additionally, I asked that our elected leaders refuse to continue a franchise agreement with Northwest Natural unless they agree to terms that put us on track to meet our CRO goals. I also support defunding and demilitarizing EPD, the urgency of which I believe has been made painfully clear in the last few weeks with EPD shooting a Black man and its continued unconscionable practice of sweeps of houseless people's belongings and spaces. I also want to note the role of police and prisons in protecting.
Thank you, Jesse. Your time is up. Next, we have James, followed by Ashley.
Hello, do you hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Jim New. I live in Ward 7. Mayor, Councilor, and City Managers, I'd like to thank Councilor Taylors and Pryor for their service all these years and wish you well in your future endeavors. Counselor Clark, maybe it was the Zoom connection, but don't give up your day job. Anniversaries can be grand events, a recollection of one of life's milestones, such as the anniversary of an academic achievement, and hopefully and most frequently celebrated our relationship anniversaries. 350 Eugene is having an anniversary with the city, only we are not celebrating. 3 years ago tonight, 350 Eugene had delivered to the mayor, council, and city manager a proposed no new fossil fuel infrastructure ordinance and fossil fuel risk bond requirement recommendation. We received a nod, a thank you, and one question from Councilor Ye, providing someone read it. When asked at an informal meeting with Councilor Zelenka if he reviewed the document, he responded it was in a big stack of papers in his office. Other than that, it was crickets, nada, no interest or further requests for information. 350 Eugene has put local climate recovery at the forefront of its volunteer efforts to help the council, Sustainability Commission, Mayor's Ad Hoc CAP 2.0 Advisory Committee, Northwest Gas Franchise Agreement, Understanding, Divestment, Exposure of Dirty Banking Practices, all efforts to assist the council in understanding and remediating the climate crisis. And we could only get one question about the no new fossil fuel infrastructure ordinance or the fossil fuel risk bond requirements in a 3-year period. Think globally, act locally. That was a quote from Mayor Vinnis on November 17, 2019. We're trying, but we need your help. Make next December's anniversary one to celebrate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Ashley, followed by Sydney.
Hi, my name is actually Erin, and I live in Ward 1. The past 2 weeks have been 2 weeks of cruelty from the city of Eugene and the EPD. We saw the shooting of Muhsin Sharif on November 30th. After a summer of uprising over the gun violence from police towards Black people in this country, this is unacceptable. Defund EPD. We also saw the sweep of over 100 unhoused individuals from the ODOT camp. The reasons for the sweep were complaints of unsanitary behaviors that could have been solved by having trash, hand washing, and porta potty services there. Not to mention these things are basic human rights. So I'm really curious to ask you all about these things. A city staff told the register guard that there were bathrooms and trash services there, but we were there several times a week and that wasn't true. Usually I do not see these services at camps, but last week I noticed there are bathrooms and trash at the camp under the Coburg Bridge on 7th. Why there? Why not all the other camps? It's time to admit that conducting camp sweeps is a human rights violation. It is not only in Eugene that this movement against sweeps is happening. It is in every city across the country as waves of people start to stand up to property owners, business owners, and city officials as they contribute to human suffering and overlook the needs of the poor in pursuit of the things that annoy the wealthy. This is not going away. If you are a city staff or politician, that means that you have the power to make decisions and move money and resources unlike the rest of us. And if you find yourself consistently worrying about the needs of business owners and homeowners who go to sleep in their warm houses each night over the unhoused who face death on the streets, is probably your privilege and internal bias that is deciding your priorities, and you should work on dismantling that in your life, because if you don't, then way more people are going to die on the streets. And for the people who are here to testify about climate change, please know that we currently have a city who attempts to sweep people away when they are displaced by our economic system, which means when we continue further into climate chaos, what does it seem like they will do? The TAC report plan is too slow. Open the fairgrounds lawn, open the fairgrounds, open the old LCC building, open the parking garages. If you are about to say those things don't belong to the county and the community college and not to the city, then call them tomorrow and schedule a meeting, because they will meet and make deals with you, not with us. And if you do nothing else, remember it takes no logistics to simply stop the sweeps and start providing bathrooms, trash, and hand washing stations to people sleeping outside during a pandemic.
Thank you. Next is Sydney, followed by Doyle.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my testimony today. My name is Sydney, and I am from Ward 3. I'm here in solidarity with Sunrise and 350 Eugene, and I'm here today to voice my concern regarding the city's ongoing use and expansion of natural gas and other fossil fuel infrastructure. As an environmental studies student at U of O, I've learned that if we want any chance of avoiding catastrophic warming, massive changes need to be made immediately at every level of government. Eugene has somehow gained a reputation as a kind of progressive, environmentally and socially conscious haven. But if the city has any interest in keeping this reputation, it will need to be earned. Those of us who have showed up here tonight are here to hold this city accountable because we cannot afford to put up with these inadequate efforts to address climate change any longer. This is why instead of relaxing after completing a rigorous week of finals, I'm here urging each of you to do everything in your power as elected representatives of this community to get this city on an energy efficient and climate conscious trajectory as soon as possible. I know that you've heard this several times tonight, but I think it's worth repeating. City Council can start by passing a series of ordinances to mandate the transition of all utilities in the city to 100% renewable energy by 2030, ban the construction of all new fossil fuel infrastructure in the city, and levy a fee on Northwest Natural and other climate polluters to create a fund to transition low-income and historically marginalized communities from fracked gas to electric appliances. I hope this council takes all of our testimony to heart and realizes that these changes need to be made to best serve this community in the long term. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Doyle, followed by Julia.
Good evening. My name is Doyle Canning, and I live in Ward 2. And I am here to support the Sunrise Movement and 350 Eugene in their comments on climate change. The Paris Agreement was signed 5 years ago in 2015. We're celebrating a special anniversary, another special anniversary today. And I remember that moment because I was holding my infant son at the time when I read the news and taking care of my then barely 2-year-old daughter. He's in kindergarten now. Time has passed. And yet the climate goals that were set by world leaders in Paris in 2015 are slipping away. There was a report that came out today indicating that there are about a dozen major fossil fuel projects in the world that will completely obliterate the carbon budget that's needed to hit the Paris goals. And one of those is here in the United States, and it's fracking. It's fracking in the Permian Basin. And we have an obligation to our community and also to the world, not just to make plans, not just to talk about climate change, but to take decisive action, the difficult actions that are needed to achieve a stable future for my children and for all future generations. Climate plans that talk about taking action later towards 2050 targets just kick the can down the road. And I'm here tonight because we're at the end of the road. There's no more road. My kids don't have more road. And we need you to take the decisive action to cut this contract or to fundamentally change the terms with Northwest Natural next year. You have an opportunity and obligation to do that, and it's a time to act. This is a moment to pass a series of ordinances that will transition our city towards 100% renewable energy, not by 2050, but by 2030, to ban new fossil fuel infrastructure, including gas hookups, and to finance a transition for low-income Oregonians to make the switch with the terms of Northwest Natural.
Thank you. Next, we have Julia, followed by Ethan. Julia, please unmute.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Councilors and Mayor Viss, thanks for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Julia. I'm a resident of Ward 1 on occupied California land. The city of Eugene went through an entire process of updating its climate action plan and now faces perfect opportunity to make good on its climate recovery ordinance goals by curbing a major fossil fuel company's hold on Eugene. We demand that the franchise agreement with Northwest Natural not be re-signed, amendments that Eugene will commit to a mandate for 100% renewable energy by 2030 from utilities, including Northwest Natural, a ban on the construction of all new fossil fuel infrastructure within the city, and an increase in the franchise fee with Northwest Natural to create a justice fund to pay for low-income and marginalized populations in Eugene to transition away from fossil fuels to renewable energy. If these changes are not made and new fossil fuel infrastructure is built in Eugene, the city's climate action plan is essentially moot, as it will drastically set our community back from achieving any sort of climate solutions. One of you mentioned earlier in this meeting that this pandemic has taken more lives than 10 9/11s. I assure you that climate catastrophe will take many more. As a young person, my future directly depends on bold action to attempt to stabilize the effects of climate change, and you all have the power to take that bold action in this case. On another note, I work for Occupy Medical's COVID respite site on River Ave. During an unlawful sweep of an unhoused camp on November 18, city officials directed the displaced folk center as if it were an alternate shelter. As a healthcare worker on the front lines of mitigating COVID spread risk in Eugene, it is insulting that the city would displace, endanger, and lie to our most vulnerable population against OHA guidelines instead of allowing them to shelter in place or providing them real alternatives for housing. The city could spend the valuable resources it dedicates to EPD on actually opening shelters for these folks rather than allowing EPD to continually abuse them. Stop the sweeps and defund the police. Thank you.
Next, we have Ethan Klein, followed by Heidi.
Thank you, city councilors and mayor. My name is Ethan Klein, and I am a resident of Ward 1. Why do leaders and policymakers in the city of Eugene support terrorizing unhoused women who have told my wife and I that what they needed were tampons and the means and hygienic and the means for a hygienic environment to change them? Women who told us they needed to stop being raped while on the streets. These are realities that are supported when the city of Eugene puts taxpayer dollars towards sweeping the unhoused under the proverbial rug and drag their feet at any desperately needed housing and sanitation services, instead of putting taxpayer dollars to bolstering free and affordable housing and lasting solutions for public sanitation. Why have leaders and policymakers in the city of Eugene spent and will continue to spend taxpayer dollars to put boulders on sidewalks and lawns to discourage the unhoused from finding somewhere safe to sleep, while they utilize taxpayer dollars in adopted budgets and supplemental budgets towards revitalizing their downtown shops and markets that can only serve those who can afford to shop in those spaces? Why do the leaders and policymakers in the city of Eugene continue to support and funnel millions of dollars into the hands of the Eugene Police Department while supporting the violence against the unhoused, the BIPOC communities, LGBTQ communities, and differently abled communities and other marginalized people? On December 1st, during the city of Eugene's illegal sweeps, someone I helped move only a few blocks away offered me money for gas. Another unhoused individual, seeing my hands in my pockets and legs shaking from being underdressed for the cold, foggy Oregon morning, and I was outside for maybe only 2 hours, told me to stay warm. They told me to stay warm before I got back into my car to my warm home while they heated their damp feet with a small camping stove, all the time completely unsure where they could relocate their home and possessions in life to. I also want to say that seeing the actions taken during the sweeps, as somebody that works for Lane County Public Health in COVID-19 case management and testing, that the city of Eugene's actions made the my job and the jobs of my coworkers exceptionally more difficult, and that my opinions and views do not represent the Lane County Public Health.
Thank you. Next is Heidi, followed by Corey.
Hi, I'm Heidi and I live in Ward 3. I want to echo the demands about a transition away from fossil fuel that were previously voiced, also in solidarity with Sunrise and many other community groups. We demand a ban on all new fossil fuel infrastructure and on enforceable mandate on utilities to provide 100% renewables by 2030, as well as levying a tax fee to create a justice fund to pay for low income and marginalized demographics to transition away from fossil fuels. There are many reasons to move away from fossil fuel and fracked gas, as previous speakers have mentioned, but I'll just mention a few more. Natural gas is fracked gas, and though it produces less CO2, the fracking process produces a lot of methane, which is 84 times as potent as CO2. Fracked gas also creates indoor toxic air and exhaust from gas appliances that can be especially toxic in smaller households and apartments, which disproportionately affects low-income people. Natural gas is in no way equitable, nor does it move us towards a healthier climate future. Not only can we not have a livable world with fossil fuels, but our world is not just or livable when people are unhoused and dying on the streets or when people are shot by the police. Everyone deserves a safe place to live, and no one deserves to be brutalized by the police, and that shouldn't need to be a question. Stop the sweeps. We need housing for all and to defund the Eugene Police Department. These funds can be redirected to so many important initiatives, including housing and addressing climate change with renewable energy, along with mental health services, de-escalation services, and community care initiatives to create a community actually based in mutual aid and genuine care and safety. These initiatives do work if you just give them a chance. Thanks for your time.
And our last speaker for the public forum who signed up before the 7:35 deadline is Corey.
Hello, can you hear me? Great. My name is Corey. I live in Ward 1. Appreciate this time to talk to you on Kalapuya land. I also appreciated Councilor Pryor's PSA earlier in the meeting about the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to add to that and say that I'm here to express my frustration with the City of Eugene with regards to their continued sweeps of the unhoused community members, most recently at First and Jefferson. These sweeps are demoralizing to the individuals and families that are the most vulnerable people in our community. These sweeps are unnecessary. They are a choice made by the city. These sweeps go against the CDC recommendations during the pandemic, jeopardizing the health of these individuals, our frontline workers, and the larger community. Uprooting a group of people that have nowhere else to go is sickening. Doing so during the cold, rainy winter months is deplorable. You are well aware that we have fewer indoor spaces and resources available to the unhoused this year, and your decisions are exacerbating the situation. Forcing these individuals to leave their camps is bad enough, but to add insult to injury, your sweeps are stealing and destroying their possessions and equipment vital to their survival. If part of the justification is waste management concerns, then set up trash and recycling, hand washing, and bathroom services for the camps. There's no valid excuse to justify turning your backs on a group of people that are suffering at our doorsteps. You're not even turning your backs on them, you're forcing them to walk away and kicking them in their backs as they're forced to adhere to your heinous decrees. Additionally, I'd like to also express my concern with EPD's actions in the shooting of Mushin Sharif. As others have expressed before me, it's unfathomable that Mushin was shot twice by EPD when a similar situation involving a white man resulted in his being arrested without shots being fired. I demand that the city release all the information related to this incident to the public and that justice is served. It is not okay for EPD to continue terrorizing this community. We need actual public safety in the city. Let us invest in services and resources that are actually supportive and uplifting to our community members. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Naya. I'm understanding that that is the close of our testimony for the public forum. I will open it to any members who wish to comment on anything.
Mayor, I'm sorry, this is Naya. I needed to check one thing.
Okay.
You were signed up twice. The first time we called your name, we
heard him. He spoke.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't two people from the household. We have several of those tonight. Thank you. That concludes.
Okay, sorry to jump in there. Okay, it looked like Betty, Councilor Taylor wanting to speak. Anybody else want to be in the queue? Councilor Taylor, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who spoke. I think the least we can do is, of the things that were asked of us, is to ban the expansion of infrastructure for fossil fuels. That would be something that we could do quickly and easily. For the other requests are things that should be discussed. Some of them, I think, for example, asking, combining the total elimination of gas and asking Northwest Natural to pay a fee to help people. I don't know if they weren't here, how they could help, why they could pay a fee, but it's worthy. All those demands or requests are worthy of discussion, but I think that we definitely should ban the expansion of infrastructure for all fossil fuels. And I hope that that's something we could do quickly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other counselors wishing to comment? I'll just make a couple of quick comments. I really appreciate, we haven't had a robust forum in a while, and I appreciate all of you who came out to speak and recognize that we do have much work in progress actually on the climate action plan, and much more work to do, but and we will be hearing more about the Northwest Natural franchise negotiations in early 2021. So that work is going on. Secondly, I want to mention that we're not at liberty to release any video around the police shooting 2 weeks ago. We don't have access to that. It's with the district attorney's office. So we're all impatient for that information, and that information is coming. And third, I think we all agree that we want to be a community where we have safe places for people to sleep, and we are struggling with the need for those places and the need for more sites, and it is unsafe for everyone in the community when too many people are sleeping without services in one location. So we all agree this is a situation we want to fix and change, and welcome community support as we look to do that. So with that, if there are no other council comments, I will adjourn this meeting of the City Council and open the meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency for our first item there, a resolution acknowledging the receipt of the annual financial report of the Urban Renewal Agency. So I'll turn this over to the city manager. Is that?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah. So this resolution is related to our audit of the Urban Renewal Agency. So our audit firm, Eisler CPA, has completed their audit of the agency's annual financial report, which ended June 30th of 2020, and issued a clean opinion. What that means is that information in the financial report is accurate and reliable. In addition, the auditors noted that nothing came to their attention that caused them to believe that the agency was not in compliance with state regulations pertaining to deposit of public funds, preparation and adoption of the budget, accounting records, and related internal control structure. So tonight we're asking the board approve a resolution acknowledging that you received the report. And if you have questions, we have Ying Lee here to answer them.
Are there any counselors with questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm going to ask Councilor Semple to put a motion on the table.
I move to adopt a resolution acknowledging receipt of the annual financial report for the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Eugene for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2020.
Second. All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. That passes. Thank you very much. And now our next item of business is a public hearing. So I am opening a public hearing on a resolution adopting a supplemental budget making appropriations for the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021. For those wishing to testify, please raise your virtual hand to join the speaker's queue in one of two ways. For those viewing the meeting on a computer, laptop, or other device, click once on the blue hand icon. For those listening to the meeting on a phone, press *9. Requests will be accepted until the first person to testify begins speaking. The meeting moderator will unraise or disallow any requests to speak that are made after that deadline. When the hearing begins, our meeting moderator will announce 2 speakers' names at a time. When it is your turn, the moderator will announce your name and promote you to panelist status. You will have 3 minutes to speak. City Manager, would you introduce this topic?
Sure thing. So we did have a meeting about this last week, but for those that may just be tuning into this, just rather quickly, the supplemental budget that occurs in December is usually our largest because we are taking care of our audit adjustments from the budgeted beginning working capital and the reappropriation of funds from the prior fiscal year for contracts, program initiatives, and projects that were started but not completed in that fiscal year. So this supplemental budget consists of transactions to amend the Urban Renewal Agency budget to reconcile our beginning working capital and our capital carryover, to reappropriate those dollars or place them into reserve and authorize other unanticipated changes in legal appropriations for the fiscal year FY21. I think I could probably stop there because we went into some detail on these particular items last week.
Right, thank you. So I now open the public hearing. So Naya, do we have folks signed up to testify?
Yes, we have 2. The first is phone ending in 878, followed by John. And you can speak. (878), we cannot hear you. It looks like you are unmuted. Please unmute. Okay, I'm gonna move to John and I will come back to you, phone ending in 878.
I'm sorry, can you hear me? I'm sorry, I was having technical difficulties.
Okay, yes, we do hear you.
May I proceed?
Yes, we'll do phone ending in 878 and then we'll do John. Thanks.
Hi, thank you. I'm sorry about my my lag there. This is Misty Frost again. Just to finish off what I was saying earlier in my previous testimony, this is regarding the budget. And I understand you all have hard decisions to make. And if government are really relying on neighborhood organizations to do emergency preparedness work for our communities, then we need some help. We need some funding, and cutting funding for this type of work is not the right time to do that. Now more than ever is a time that we need to add funding to emergency response and preparedness. And please don't cut funding for these programs, and consider moving a few bucks toward neighborhood organizations so that we can be more successful in preparing our communities and save lives and save the city unimaginable costs in rebuilding and repairs. And I want to add that maintaining funding for disaster preparedness will also support your dedication and promise to fight climate change in the climate action plan. Thank you so much.
John, you're up next.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Council and members tonight about the supplemental budget.
John, your connection is going in and out.
As you were, I will try. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, John, can you turn your video off? Oh, thank you. Okay, try again.
How about now? Can you hear me? All right. I'll keep the video off. You don't want to see me anyways. You've seen me enough. So anyways, I'm talking about the supplemental for the URA. Again, you had a brief glimpse at this last week, and I appreciate the city manager putting that meeting together. So this supplemental budget for the Urban Renewal Agency is a little bit different than what we normally see on the URA's supplemental budget. Usually it's a very calm and small transactions, adjustments to the marginal beginning working capital. This one has quite a bit of meat to the bone. And I think what this shows you today is this is you guys actually writing the check for things that you have pledged to do in previous council directions. You're going to be paying for the things with this supplemental budget, where we've got money that's going to the parks. You've got money that's going to the infrastructure and the roads that are being built. You've got money to actually pay the bills on building the quiet zone. So this is kind of the metal meeting the road. It's very exciting. I think that we've come a long way to get here, and there's shovels in the ground and things are beginning to happen, and it's been a long process, and I really appreciate you guys for sticking with it and making some tough choices. You're spending
We're losing you.
John, we're not catching any of this.
Oh, am I off again?
You're on. John, you're back on.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll just finish up real quickly and just say that I appreciate all you're doing, and I appreciate Councilor Pryor and Taylor's long service and work, and this will be the last time you'll have to hear me talk to you about a supplemental budget. Thank you.
Thank you, and Mayor, that concludes the public hearing.
Okay, that's great. Thank you both. And so I now close the public hearing, and I see that Councilor Clark has his hand raised. So Councilor Clark, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I don't even know how many years it's been now since John Borowski left the Budget Committee. It's been 5 or 6, I think, at least. And I can remember one time maybe he's missed one meeting that had something to do with the Budget Committee without giving testimony that isn't just something he's complaining about. John gives information that always helps me think about what we're doing differently and more intelligently. And frankly, there's been a couple of times where we were making a mistake and it helped correct it. And in the middle of the worst pandemic in modern history, where the restaurant industry is being hit harder than almost any other, here he is trying to do a public service in the middle of dealing with that impact on his life. And I just want to say how much I honor John for doing that. And brother, I'm more sad than I have words for about La Perla. And I just wish you continued strength, and I appreciate you. I just needed to say that.
Thank you. Any other counselors needing to comment? Okay, seeing none, Councilor Semple, I'm going to turn it over to you to put a motion on the table.
I move to adopt Resolution 1097, adopting a supplemental budget, making appropriations for the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021.
All right, all in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that passes 8-0. Thank you very much. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency and reconvene the meeting of the Eugene City Council for another public hearing and action. This is a public hearing on a resolution adopting a supplemental budget and making appropriations for the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. For those wishing to testify during the public hearing, please raise your virtual hand or press *9 if you have joined via phone. Requests to speak will be accepted until the first person to testify begins speaking. When you are called on to speak, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known. You will have 3 minutes to comment. A timer will appear on the screen to indicate the time you have to speak. The red light indicates the end of the 3 minutes. So manager, I'll give you a minute to introduce this topic.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is an opportunity for the City Council to hear from the public on your FY21 December supplemental budget. We've made this available to the public and advertised through multiple avenues, including the budget interested parties list and as a legal ad in the Register Guard on December 7th, and as well as our supplemental budget meeting last week. This budget will adjust our adopted budget for audit adjustments, including our beginning working capital and capital carryover, recognizes new revenue, and allocates resources for other unanticipated changes and legal appropriations to make progress on previously directed council initiatives. As you know from our meeting last week, we've tried to really focus this and have it be a truly supplemental budget that moves some of your priorities forward while maintaining the rest either in reserves so that we can have a bigger public conversation as part of our regular budget process.
Okay, thank you. I now open the public hearing, and Naya, do we have a couple of speakers?
We do. We have John, followed by phone ending in 878.
Okay, we'll try this again. Can you hear me? It may drop off. Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I would just like to speak to the process of this latest supplemental budget and say how happy I am with the way that the city manager brought it before the citizen members of the budget committee. I think that the openness and transparency of this supplemental budget has been the best in the 12 or 13 years that I've been going over supplemental budgets. It was very informative, and it gets to the true meaning of what a supplemental budget should be. Just taking care of things that fall outside of the normal budget process. I'm also very happy to see that a lot of ongoing priorities that have been set by council priorities are moving forward. One of those being the $900,000 capital transfer. This is something that has been gotten away from a little bit for other priority needs, and I'm happy to see that that's back. I'm also happy to see that the $500,000 to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund was able to be made as a transfer, as a promise that was made to the community going forward. Again, I think that this type of supplemental budget process is one that will work well going forward. And for all the members of the budget committee that really want to start getting into it, I think that there's a really good, interesting reading on the consent calendar tonight. The CAFR that came through is a really fun read for all of you people who can't get to sleep at night. It's only about 150 pages. So I would suggest reading that and getting familiar with it. But again, thank you all for your hard work and helping to keep the budget moving along. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next is phone ending in 878.
Hello, this is Misty Frost, and I apologize for keep popping up in every public testimony. But the budget and cutting emergency preparedness and evacuation programs at this time is not the time, as we see the effects of climate change putting our community at risk. I urge that you maintain funding for these programs. We have the winter season coming up, and we can't even, there's no way of knowing how this will affect us, and we need to keep funding available for disasters. Thank you.
Thank you, Misty. And Mayor, that concludes the public hearing.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any comments from the council? Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone who spoke. I may have to come back to hear John Borofsky. It's been a long time, and he certainly has done his homework more than almost anyone who speaks to council. I am very disturbed by one item in this supplemental budget, the money spent to implement House Bill 2001.
Betty, you're muted. Betty, you're on mute.
To start over again, I was going to say, I said thanks to John Borofsky, and I will miss him too, and I have to come back and hear him probably. But and Misty Frost is quite right about what she's saying. I've worked with her on a RAPA board, but I am very disturbed by the item about House Bill 2001, spending money to implement it instead of what we should be doing is looking for ways to avoid implementing it and to change the state, to get the state representatives to repeal it. We're spending a huge amount of money to figure out how to do this, which will do a lot of harm to the city rather than help anyone. And I will vote against this whole thing if we leave that in it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I was waiting for Betty to make a motion there. Did you have one? Because I might be willing to join you.
Okay, I move to delete the item about House Bill 2001.
Second.
Any want to speak to that more? We have or Councilor Pryor, do you wish to speak to that?
I would say if the rest of my.
I'm sorry. I got you out of order.
You can go ahead. Let him finish. Go ahead.
Yes, please. Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Chris. We've beat this issue quite a bit, and I recognize that this is perfunctory and the votes aren't there to do it. But Betty's absolutely right. And I really want to say that on the last Monday night I get to work with her. I want to say it yet again. Betty is absolutely right. This will result in more expensive and less housing being built. That will be the end result of this work. So I recognize that it's an error. I won't call it a fool's errand, but getting the legislature to change their mind on this isn't going to happen. I understand that. But this body has made more symbolic statements than I ever thought imaginable when I joined it. And this is one we absolutely should be making. So thanks.
Councilor Pryor.
As you know, I've been involved with figuring out the model code for House Bill 2001 and 2003 for the last 9 months. I've been sitting on the committee that's been working to develop the model code. So I've been extremely familiar over the last 9 months with what House Bill 2001 is trying to accomplish, what the model code is trying to do, and what their intentionality is, and listening to it in person firsthand. And I'm sorry, Councilor Taylor and Councilor Clark are absolutely dead 100% wrong. And so we're entitled to differences of opinion, that's fine, but it is the law. And thinking we're going to change the law is probably along the same lines of thinking we're going to overturn the election. It is what it is, and that is the law. And we just need to figure out what Eugene's strategy is for abiding by the law. And that takes time, and it takes some money, and it takes some reasonable thought.
and burying our head in the sand, it will not get us into compliance with that law. So for better or worse, we need to expend the funds necessary to figure out how Eugene is going to align with a law that is now passed, been in effect, and code has now been created. So rather than pretending, I think we need to get real.
All right, Councillor Evans.
Thanks, Mayor. I will point something out about this. I realize that Councilor Pryor is right. It is the law. We need to follow it. But there are parts of this that, particularly as we build the code to comply with House Bill 2001, that we make sure that we have specific language and tools to be able to prevent, housing, multi-unit housing that will be built at market rate. I'm really afraid of that. I was on a conference call last week with members of the University and Communities Council with NLC, and there are a number of university and college communities around the country that are experiencing kind of the results of what they didn't intend to have happen. And that is for developers to build market rate housing. I think we need to assure the fact that we're going to get, workforce housing, some of the missing middle housing, and I'm looking forward to that as staff works through this.
Agreed.
Councillor Clark, you wanted to come back one more time?
Yes.
Oh, and Councillor Taylor. Yep.
I just wanted to say that as someone who works in this industry, I'm absolutely right in what I'm saying, and I appreciate what Greg just said. He's absolutely right that what will happen is, and there are people in this community planning it right now, to take old, affordable homes, tear them down and build very new, very nice, less affordable homes. It's happening right now in Eugene. And as someone in the industry, I get to make a lot more money personally helping people buy the new homes than I would otherwise. But it's horrible policy because it will hurt people. And I would say that there are plenty of times when this body had the opportunity to get real and accept federal laws over the last few years, but instead we chose the symbolic fight. Let's choose and talk about a couple of them maybe. I won't do that, but sanctuary city policy, for example. Despite the federal laws involved, this body said that's not acceptable to us. And although we may face consequences for doing so, we're going to fight that because it's the wrong thing to do and it's going to hurt people. And this is the exact same thing. I just needed to say that. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, did you have another comment?
I do. Councillor Clark is absolutely right. I sometimes disagree with him occasionally, but he's absolutely right. He knows what he's talking about. This bill is going to hurt people who that it purports to help. That's who it's going to hurt. I would like to remind you, our country was founded by people who were rebelling against unjust laws. And there's nothing wrong. Yes, I remember the Patriot Act. We made a statement against that. It was a federal law. And we made a statement against, my screen is blocking out something now. So I can't see anybody anymore, but that's okay, I guess. I can't see the parts of where I can mute myself. But I think if we could do anything, all our efforts should be put toward trying to avoid enforcing this, letting this law go into effect, and to protect the middle housing that we do have. It isn't the mansions that will be torn down to build expensive housing. It is the affordable houses that will be purchased, demolished, and replaced by duplexes or triplexes that will cost a lot more than those do. And then this is similar actually to the STRs, but it's destroying the things that people with moderate income could maybe afford to buy or to rent. So it's going to hurt our housing supplies tremendously. And I really object to our spending money to find ways to enforce it rather than we have time to try to resist it. This did pass by one vote, actually, in the House of Representatives. They could change it. Thank you. I can't find my place to mute myself, but.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. I think we are ready for a vote on Betty's motion to remove the support for developing code to House Bill 2001 from the supplemental budget. So, and that's been seconded by Mike. So I'll put that on the table. All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm also opposed. All right, so that goes down, and now I believe we're ready for the motion as written. Yeah, Councilor Semple.
I move to adopt Resolution 5314, adopting a supplemental budget, making appropriations for the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020, and ending June 30, 2021.
Second. All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed. Oh, 7. Opposed. 1. So it passes 7-1. Thank you very much. And now we are ready for our final item, discussion of the riverfront, and I'm going to turn that over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I know it's been a long night. Sorry that we're almost at 10 o'clock, but I do recognize this is sort of a pattern with our last meeting before you go on your winter break. It always seems like it piles up. So your last item actually has quite a number of potential actions you can take, and it is more or less kind of coming to our final steps with our work with EWEB around the riverfront development. So almost a year ago, when I first stepped into the spot, we were right at hey, try to figure out how to kind of finalize this 3-part deal with EWEB, which is really around the purchase of the MGP site, which is the old manufacturing gas plant site. Purchasing of that site allows us to complete our phase 2 infrastructure in the railroad quiet zone. So that's one piece. The second piece was a request around doing some code changes to provide more certainty in the surplus process when EWEB has surplus property to get rid of. And the third one was to either purchase or relinquish our headquarters site discussion. So we've talked about this a number of times, and what tonight's action would do would essentially 3 things. The first is we have negotiated, Frank and I have negotiated on the MGP site and have come to an agreement of $400,000 for that site. That is has some contingencies related to both relinquishing or purchasing the headquarters site. And based on our last conversation and kind of where I have felt the majority of the council is at the relinquish state, at least at this point in time. And the third one is the code amendments, which we have, I'll talk through in a minute. So what happens tonight is essentially a couple of weeks ago, EWEB has agreed to surplus the MGP site. So based on tonight's conversation, I'll let them know that we are interested and we'll be negotiating. Tonight, you'll be authorizing me both as the city manager and the agency director to enter into that purchase and sale agreement at the price I discussed with you earlier. And there's two things that will happen after that. So tonight you would also be initiating the code amendments, which have to go through a regular code amendment process, which includes a public hearing. And so how we start out and how you end may not exactly be the same, but I will walk you through what that is. And then the third thing would be when we actually close on that MGP site, we would also be, when we also finalize the code amendment. So you would actually have adopted it. I know this is really complicated, which is why I've talked to each of you. So the currently what's happening with the code is there's a paragraph in chapter 2 that essentially says if eWeb wants to or has a piece of property they want to surplus, they're required to let me know. And I have 30 days to basically say, yes, we're interested in this. And then there's this kind of long process from the time I say, yes, we want to negotiate until we actually have to finalize our discussions. And that's the 5-year piece. And that has been something that has felt really difficult for eWeb, I think, for some time. And they're asking for more certainty. And so what we will be moving forward as you initiate it is tightening that timeline up to 3 years. So the overall process would be complete in 3 years. And it also inserts a couple of deadlines in the middle. So instead of it just being this first 30 days and then 3 years, there's actually 2 different timelines in there that we'll be proposing, and you'll have a lot more discussion about this, is the first would be at 180 days that the general manager and city manager would have come to, we would have already, had some negotiation, and we would be bringing the deal points to our elected bodies by that first 180 days, and that we would be coming to some conclusion at the end of a year, and we have 3 years to kind of complete the whole deal. There's some flexibility built in there with agreement between the city manager and the general manager. And again, this is something you will just be initiating tonight, and we will go through the process of writing it, having the public hearing, and you'll be able to hear more about it. So essentially tonight, you have a series of actions that kind of set some things in motion. So the most important thing you're setting in motion tonight is we'll be initiating the code amendment, and you're authorizing me to negotiate and execute that purchase and sale agreement. 2 clear things: when we sign the purchase and sale agreement, which comes first, we would be relinquishing the headquarters building, which I anticipate it'll take us several months to get through that. So it could be the end of February when we'll hit that mark. And then when we close on the property, which I'm hoping will be by April, we would be agreeing, we would have finalized those code amendments. I may have just sort of botched all that. It's kind of a complicated process, but you have 4 motions that walk through that. And I'm here, and there's other staff here to answer any more specific questions.
Okay, thank you. I see Councilor Clark and Councilor Evans. So Councilor Clark first, and then Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Mayor Sarah. When will that public hearing on the changed ordinance likely take place? Likely.
Catherine, do you have a sense of that in terms of the timing of writing the code and
January or February? January 19th would be the earliest, because we'd need to get the title posted and just based on the charter requirements by the end of December. So January 19th earliest, if not then mid-February.
Okay. Either way, that will be before we sign the agreement that you mentioned, which also signs off on and relinquishes our option. Is that correct?
No, I would characterize it as 2 paired things. So the first thing will be, we'll initiate that code. We'll initiate the code amendment. We won't actually finalize that until it's a requirement of closing, not a requirement. Yeah. So the relinquishment actually comes first.
The public hearing. I'm sorry. The public hearing will take place prior to the relinquishment. Isn't that correct? I'm seeing Catherine nod.
Yeah, I think that based on the length of time it would take to, yeah.
Right, because I would expect that at the earliest, the signing of the purchase and sale would be late February, March. That would be my guess, just based on drafting.
I have always made a comment in passing and joking, and never tried to be other than kind of funny and pushy about it, never made a broad public appeal. I'm starting that tonight. If the general public believes that we should be buying this for City Hall instead of building a $40 million new one, that public hearing will be your first opportunity to be heard on that question. And then that will be the final opportunity. So for those very few people who are still watching tonight, I wanted to say that. And I'm sure there'll be more talk about it later in other mediums. Thank you.
Hey, Councilor Evans?
Yeah, Sarah, you got me a little bit confused here. So we would enter into agreement to buy the property, including the headquarters building. Is that correct?
No. So we're entering an agreement to buy. We're entering an agreement to buy the MGP site, and when we sign that agreement to do that, we would be relinquishing the headquarters site.
Okay, now I'm clear.
Okay, Alan, Councilor Zelenka.
So Sarah, this is a package deal, so if any one part of it falls apart, the whole thing falls apart?
That has been the way we've approached it. Yeah, it's always been sort of these three things linked together.
So that would, if one of them, if the headquarters building part doesn't move forward, then we don't buy the MGP site, and it would hamper the ability to do the riverfront and the project down there at the old steam plant.
So the way that to be fair, I feel like the way that EWEB has always characterized this is that before they will sign the purchase and sale agreement with us, they need us to either relinquish or we need to purchase the headquarters site. And so far, there has not been a council majority that has expressed an interest in purchasing that site.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councilor Syrett first. Okay, there we go. Take it away, Councilor.
Thank you. Just to be clear, Sarah, when you say relinquish, you mean relinquish the right to be the only bidder. So if we change the code and relinquish that, we could still line up with other buyers if, you know, there was a sea change and we decided we want to buy it. So we'd only be relinquishing that. We're first in line. Nobody else gets to talk about it except us for those 5 years. That's what we'd be relinquishing.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you for that clarification.
Thanks.
Okay, is everyone clear enough to start? We have 3 motions here, and then we'll go into the Urban Renewal Agency for the 4th. So, Councilor Semple?
Move to authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign a purchase and sale agreement for the agency's acquisition of the MGP site for $400,000 using Riverfront Urban Renewal Funds, and that includes as one of the conditions of closing the City Council's adoption of amendments to EC 2.196.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 opposed. Who am I missing? I'm missing Betty. Betty? Okay. I don't have Betty in the room, so we'll just say it's 7.
She lost her feed. She's there, but she's not.
There she goes.
There she is.
Are you in support of this motion or are you opposed? Raise your hand if you're in support.
You're muted, Betty.
I'm voting.
Headphones on.
I have my hand up to speak before the
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not see that. We're now voting. Do you want to vote?
I think she wants to speak, Mayor.
Yeah.
Put on your headphones.
Headset. You have to put on a headset. We can't hear you.
Okay, I was trying to speak before. I had to go take care of my dog a while ago, I guess.
Okay.
She said she was bored. I don't want the web building to be City Hall, but I don't think we should give up the right to purchase it or to facilitate a purchase. I think it should be a public building. And I think we shouldn't give that up just now. That's why I'll be voting against this motion. Thank you.
Okay, so the first motion on the table, Betty, Councilor Taylor, is about moving to authorize to sign a purchase and sale agreement for the MGP site.
I understand that, but that involves giving up the right to the building, right?
It involves giving up the right only to be the sole bidder on the building.
Okay, that's what I
mean. To bid on the building. We still have the right to bid on the building in the future.
I know.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you're a no vote. Okay, so 7-1, this first motion passes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor, sorry to interrupt you. I don't know that I heard who the second was on this motion.
It was Jennifer.
Okay. Thanks.
I think her sound was soft, but.
Turn you, Sarah.
Okay. Right. We're ready for the second motion.
Did you vote on the first one?
Yep.
Move to direct the city manager to prepare an ordinance and schedule a public hearing on amendments to EC 2.196, adoption of which will be a condition of closing the agency's purchase of the MGP site.
All in favor of this motion, please raise your hand.
I apologize. Could you repeat that? The first part of that, I apologize.
Oh, okay.
Move to direct the city manager to prepare an ordinance and schedule a public hearing on amendments to EC 2.196.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1. Okay, that passes 7-1. All right, the third one.
Move to direct the city manager to notify eWeb simultaneous with the execution of the MGP site purchase and sale agreement that the city is terminating the negotiations for acquisition of the eWeb headquarters building previously requested by the city pursuant to EC 2.196.
Did you second that? We couldn't hear you, Jennifer. Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? 1, 2. Greg, did you vote? I'm not seeing your hand in either way.
It was affirmative.
It was yes.
He was in favor.
Yes. Okay. So 6-2 then. Okay. Thank you. So that passes 6-2. Now I'm closing out of the Eugene City Council and reopening the meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency Board. And Councilor Semple, we have another similar motion to the first one.
Move to authorize the agency director to negotiate and sign a purchase and sale agreement for the agency's acquisition of the MGP site for $400,000 using Riverfront Urban Renewal Funds, and that includes as one of the conditions of closing the City Council's adoption of amendments to EC 2.196.
Second. Councilor Clark, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I did. I understood the timing that was read to me in the first place, but I want to make sure, and I know this is one of those things that I've made a nuisance of myself on this issue. I grant that. And I know that certainly it's true, I'd like to have my way. But sincerely, in the interest of public transparency and public's interest, I want to add a caveat to this, a friendly if it'll be accepted, and a motion if not. The words, after a public hearing on the ordinance. Catherine, are we okay with that?
Well, I'm just trying to think, this is the agency you're acting as, and the
I know.
public hearing is going to be done by the city council.
But they're the
So-
ones who actually take the legal action, right?
Pardon?
The agency takes the legal action to sign, isn't that correct?
It's a three-party, it will be a three-party purchase and sale agreement between the city, the agency, and eWeb. It will be, I mean, what I would actually recommend doing is just making a separate motion around the timing of the public hearing. If you wanted to say,
The mayor and the manager will be in charge of that. I'll deal with that at a later time and have discussions with them. They're both wonderful people. I'm sure that it'll all go well. I'm going to retract what I've asked.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table, ready to vote. So all in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 2. All right, so that passes 6-2. And with that, we have completed, and I just want to congratulate, I'll give you a moment. Councillor Evans, go ahead. You're on mute still. You're on mute.
Let me ask this question. If the headquarters building would still be in play if, despite what we have done tonight, right? It could be in play in terms of our option to buy it or not, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, I think we close that meeting, and I just want to congratulate Councillor Pryor and Councillor Taylor on completing a very long public service career with one very, very long Monday night meeting. So congratulations, thank you all. And we're adjourned, and we'll see you for a final meeting on Wednesday. Thanks so much. Good night.